You know, a lot of ADHD traits are also seen as less socially appropriate, like blurting out stupid shit that comes into your head. I don't always catch that myself, but I do feel that as a result of my autistic traits, I probably catch about 80% of the stupid shit that would have otherwise come out.
I mean, one thing that I always highlight to anyone that I meet who is, well, even if I suspect that someone's autistic, or you know, I ask them if they're autistic and they say yes, and I've had a conversation with them, I usually say so because of the style of communication. Like, it's literally, the style of communication is, so we got a video here from Yo Sam to Sam. We watched a video before on how my ADHD hides my autism. Not me, Yosemite Sam, talking about their experiences. Well, today we're going to watch the second video of the series. It'd be quite interesting because I am not an ADHD individual. The majority of autistic people out there are ADHD. There's less of us who tend to just be autistic, which I find that sort of quite an interesting thing to wrap your head around. So I think this would probably be quite relatable to a lot of people, and perhaps there'll be some cool talking points for us to get our grubby little mitts on.
Hello everyone, my name is Sam and I am a late diagnosed autistic ADHDer, otherwise known as an ADHDer. I previously did a video about how my ADHD
just like scroll down the page so that people can't see it very well. Brilliant, Thomas. You're such a professional.
hides my autism,
Yes.
which is part of the reason I believe that I was only diagnosed into my 30s. But today I want to talk to you about how my autism hides my ADHD. Now, the two conditions are so related, but it wasn't until 2013 that dual diagnosis became possible, because it was thought that if you had one diagnosis, you couldn't possibly have the other. Since then, we've discovered that, in fact, a lot of people do have both. So if you already have one diagnosis but aren't sure about the other one yet, when you're done watching this video, do go and watch that other video, because I think it might be quite helpful for you.
100%. I don't know. I think just from the top of my head, I think I mentioned it last time, but I think 25% of ADHDers are also autistic, whereas God, I can't remember. it was quite a large amount, like maybe 50-70%. Do not quote me on that. Of autistic people also have ADHD. It's a strange one, and I think a lot of people these days are like arguing about, or sort of contemplating, the idea of the autism ADHD dynamic being sort of a part of the same label to a certain degree. I'm not sure if I agree with that though.
Like I've said before, when you have both, they can really appear to hide each other. But that doesn't make you any less valid as an ADHDer. It just means your problems, your needs are different, and you may not fully relate to one group or the other. I just want to say, when I'm on camera, my ADHD tends to take over. This is also scripted. I script my videos, which means that my brain doesn't have to think so much and I can concentrate on acting. But in real life, talking to people, the autistic side does kind of come out a little bit more. And that's even when I'm masking. So anyway, let's get into it. Every autistic person has a different expression of autistic traits. And obviously I have more autistic traits that I'm going to talk about in this video, but these are the ones that I think are relevant in the context of ADHD. So these are the need for order and routine, social difficulties, and I'll expand on that definitely a little bit later, pattern recognition, a preference for rationalizing thoughts and emotions, ability to absorb and make sense of a lot of information. And this is also where the crossover with giftedness comes into play, which is really a topic for another video, but I wanted to mention it now.
Yes, I think I've heard about this fabled
So the need
concept.
for order and routine. As someone who feels sort of completely chaotic inside most of the time, I've been told repeatedly throughout my life, like, you're so organized. And I'm like, thanks, it's a coping mechanism. So my own chaos causes me distress, because fundamentally I love things to be ordered and organized, and yet I cannot do that. So a lot of my life has basically been like the odd couple dynamic, one side trying to kind of control and cajole the other side. And so...
Well, I don't know, because, I mean, who really knows? I haven't tried to get an ADHD assessment, but I'm pretty sure autistic people can also have those experiences too. Like, just bearing in mind the aspects of executive dysfunction. Sometimes, although routine is good and we sort of crave it and it makes us happy, it's not always that we can upkeep it, especially if we set ourselves, talking to you, Thomas, a routine which is jam-packed and doesn't sort of give yourself time to rest, sort of sitting in that zone of capability rather than trying to max out your capacity, trying to min-max the situation. My pattern recognition is off the charts. Yes, me too. But what head spaghetti it creates. I fit the autistic description exactly, but so does my ADHD, and they're a bit apparent on their own. I don't know, it's a strange one, like, because I know people who are ADHD. Obviously, I do not have, as much as I would like to think, goggles or a radar, a specdar that would sort of point out autistic people to me. But, like, I know what ADHD is, and they do not seem to me to have the autistic style of communication, you know? So I don't know if it's that sort of a tied together thing, just from both my personal experiences and from like having a little look into the sort of research around it. I have very flexible routines. Interesting. Yeah. It really depends on what I give myself, to be honest. Due for my next Adderall, lost my ability to write. I'm running late to get my kid. Oh dear. There's an 18-question screen for ADHD that's pretty accurate. If you get at least and often or on at least 4 of the 6 questions, guess what? Ooh, maybe we'll have to do that. Order and routine.
And so when I see, hashtag relatable ADHD content about complete chaos and stuff, I don't relate to that because one side of me is always trying to rein it in. And to be perfectly honest, I can't live like that. But what that means from the outside is that people only ever see the systems that autism has set up in order to control ADHD. And things still slip through the cracks anyway, but it doesn't make me look very ADHD. And making order...
That's interesting. Because I kind of feel similarly, I think, when it comes to like mental health, because when my mental health is good, my executive function is really, really good. I think one of the questions that one of you guys asked was, how does autism sort of affect me in daily life? And when I've got no mental health issues to speak of, like life is going good, I'm having one of my rare days. Nothing is bad. Like I can pretty much just cope with everything and sort of executive function wise as well. But it is usually the first thing to drop, So to a certain degree, it's like I'm having to bargain between my sort of difficulties with mental health and being autistic to a certain degree. Tell me you should go on the Psy Guys podcast, the ADHD and Autistic. The Psy Guys. I have not heard of them. I don't like ADHD because I am PI and hyperfocus and female and a quick learner. Interesting. I recognize the need for routine, but I can't get there. It's hard. It's difficult. Like, totally. Related to executive function. I don't know, and executive dysfunction is a part of autism. So, for a lot of people. So it's like, the crossovers are very strong between autism and ADHD. So like wherever someone sits in the middle. But then I said, then again, like ADHDers that I've come across do not seem to relate to me. And I don't seem to relate to them as much if they're just ADHD. It works. We kind of bounce off each other. I sort of keep the conversation direct and on track. And they sort of think of new, interesting ideas and paths to take me down, which quite often I say no.
Order out of chaos is a nice skill, for sure, but it needs to be done over and over again, and over and over and over again, because the chaos is always still fundamentally there. As you can imagine, that's very tiring. So let's talk about social difficulties now. And this is a really interesting one, because I come across a lot of content like lesser known ADHD symptoms, and they're all actually autistic traits. But I think it's also interesting because you wouldn't think that something that you struggle with on the one hand is covering up something else that you struggle with from a different perspective. So a lot of autistic people mask. I definitely do, and this is for better or worse. And this often results in social situations. You manage around social situations by being hypervigilant. You're constantly scanning to see if you've kept up with the conversation or the mood of the room, or if people are responding to you right, and if you're doing a good job at socializing. It's exhausting. And this high alert.
Yeah, I wouldn't really conflate it with being good at socializing, though, because I think from the neuronormative perspective, maybe it could be seen in that way. But if you have the skills to sort of, it sounds very not sort of egotistical of me to say, but if you have the understanding of the other person and you have ways to help them understand and relate to aspects of your communication, and you sort of pinpoint those things and make them aware of it, you actually don't really need to mask. But like around some people, it really depends on the person. But I mean, makes sense. Hypervigilance is probably one of the reasons why socializing has such an impact on your sort of overall energy levels as an autistic person. That social battery is gonna empty out very, 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 very quickly if you're both socializing with another person. You know, you're talking to them, you're communicating, and you're also trying to maintain the correct percentage of eye contact to make to show us a particular thing, and you're sort of adjusting that, and then you're adjusting your facial expressions, and you know, perhaps if cognitive empathy doesn't, that sort of indirect communication, facial expressions, body language doesn't come very naturally, you got to try and understand that and isolate that, and maybe you're trying to change your own body language, and it's like you're trying to do all of that at the same time. Do you know what I mean? Thomas, I noticed you're too tired to mask, and it's refreshing. I don't think I mask anyway, do I? Do I seem different? I think probably you're just, what you're picking up is my sleep deprivation. Ooh, who is Esper? Hello, Esper Lunaria. First time making it to a live stream. I'm probably going to lurk, but I hope everyone's having a good day. I'm not very active, but communities like this one mean a lot to me. Well, it means a lot for you to join us, and feel free to talk and communicate with thine brethren as much as you wish.
Alert for social mistakes system also happens to catch a lot of the ADHD stuff as well. You know, a lot of ADHD traits are also seen as less socially appropriate, like blurting out stupid shit that comes into your head. I don't always catch that myself, but I do feel that as a result of my autistic traits, I probably catch about 80% of the stupid shit that would have otherwise come out. And so the fear of making social mistakes, that fear has come about probably as a result of my autism, but that has also caused me to hold back on a lot of ADHD traits, such as talkativeness, because when I unmask or after a couple of glasses of wine or something, I really struggle to stop talking. And I know that people don't always appreciate that. Why do you think I have a YouTube channel? But for me, well, for everyone, alcohol is something that lowers inhibitions. And for me, it lowers my mask. I think that's also part of the reason why it can be quite appealing to a lot of us. So
I think, yes, maybe to a certain extent. I think alcohol definitely does like increase the amount of social reward that you feel from interacting with other people. It's not really something that I indulge in a lot. It's not really my favorite thing, but definitely I've experienced that. And also sensory sensitivities. It does seem to dull a lot of sensory sensitivities that I might have, like particularly if I'm in a very noisy place. It can sometimes be quite helpful in that sense. And it does quieten that like social anxiety voice that you get, that I think a lot of autistic people have, you know, that kind of learnt, you sort of learn through your life that you say the wrong things, and you're sort of always expecting people to get upset at you for saying stuff, and you know, that kind of feeling, I think that sort of tends to dissipate a little bit. I think it's a lot to do with the dulling, you know. I think that's why people go for it. Alcohol usually makes me sleep in dull. Interesting. Well, it definitely does have effects on everybody. I mean, it acts on GABA, and you know, we saw some studies on sort of paradoxical reactions to benzodiazepines, which are also act on GABA. So it makes sense that maybe we might have a different reaction to it. Clearly, I'm not welcome here. What do you mean, Mr. Joe? I drink a lot of tea at gatherings and stay on the periphery. I think that would make a really good bio, you know? Layla, you gotta put that as your strap line, you know, for a company. Or if you were going to make a YouTube channel, that would be your strap line. I drink a lot of tea at gatherings and I stay on the periphery. I love that. Periphery is a lovely word.
So once I let out both the autism and the ADHD in a social setting, and this is a true story, you know, I will corner strangers and have intense political conversations with them, sometimes for hours, and that fulfills my need to not stop talking and also my need to info dump on certain topics. And if you're sitting here watching thinking, that sounds pretty good, actually, that sounds kind of like a fun party, then maybe you're one of us. And I just briefly wanted to mention something else regarding the social stuff, which I thought about as I was writing the script. Now, I've had a lot of ADHD friends in my life, a lot of whom undiagnosed, but I find myself drawn to ADHD as for friends because I think that's fulfilling some kind of a social need for me. But I've also noticed that autistic people are very drawn to me. And I don't know whether that's the case with anyone else, whether you recognize that dynamic. Maybe I just have an approachable face.
I mean, one thing that I always highlight to anyone that I meet who is, well, even if I suspect that someone's autistic or you know, I ask them if they're autistic and they say yes, and I've had a conversation with them, I usually say so because of the style of communication. Like, it's literally, the style of communication is one person, like, you pass all of the small talk BS. You go straight to like a deep conversational topic as soon as possible. And then you basically, one person speaks for an allotted period of time. And then you listen to them. And then the other person speaks for an allotted period of time. And it kind of switches back and forth, like playing a game, like that ball game, you know, when kids sort of sit around in a circle, sort of passing the talking ball to each other. Or whatever kind of talking item. It's kind of like that. Whereas I don't really get that when it comes to neurotypicals. It's sort of like a game of tennis. Or probably like more a game of table tennis sometimes with some people. I usually like autistic people better as communication is more intuitive. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like you just kind of get a feeling. It probably will be the bot. It should tell you why. I have tried to set the bot so that it doesn't apply its rules to people who are regulars. So maybe I'll have a little bit more luck on that. Try and get it fixed for years. I can't feel that close to people without autism. I can, but they've got to really meet me halfway in their communication style. And to be honest, if they are already direct communicators and they like that style of conversation themselves, even if they're not autistic, it kind of works anyway, you know. But I would say it's pretty rare to come across in neurotypicals. Here's Mike AF said he wrote a bot for him. No, there's only the bots. I don't think we have admins. No, we do not have admins. Do not worry. It's Marvin. Marvin is bringing down judgments. I'll tell him off after.
But let me know if that's something that you find familiar or resonates with you, because I'm quite curious. So the next one we're going to talk about is pattern recognition. And I don't think this is something the average person would associate with autism, but I do think it's a pretty common autistic trait. You know, there's the stereotype, and in the DSM, I think they even mention it, where it's this like weird obsession with strings of numbers, like on number plates and stuff. I've always thought that was odd, because if you are good at pattern recognition, if that's a strength of yours, if you see them anywhere without really having to think about it, then you'll notice it without it being an obsession necessarily. So what's this got to do?
Well, it's like little things like that. If you're talking to another autistic person, it's like strings of numbers or like the sound of words. It just kind of works, you know, and you sort of both intuitively sort of pick up on that and identify it in each other. It's a very, very interesting experience to talk to another autistic person. It's not always good. Like, I've had bad conversations with autistic people, like very uncomfortable ones, sometimes confrontational ones. It really depends on the person, you know. But yeah, what was I going to say? Something. There was something that I was going to say. Yes, that you do have the Marvin emoji at your fingertips. The cats are away and the mice will play. Well, speaking to other autistic people because it doesn't drain me. I mean, it probably tends to drain me more, mostly because I'm speaking more. I just usually for most people that I meet, I just try to be a bit more of a listener. I mean, I am just naturally a bit more of a listener anyway. But you know, I'm pretty happy, like not really trying very hard to engage as much as a lot of people. I'm pretty comfortable with silence, and usually the other person tends to fill in the silence quicker than I do. You know, ooh, the sound of words, yes, like expeditious. Isn't that just a good word? Or peripheral, periphery. Oh no, I'm chatty. It doesn't really matter. Like, I think it's just as long as there is sort of this kind of intuitive back and forth kind of dynamic between two people, it just kind of works. It just feels natural, you know. It doesn't feel forced. Don't really need to think about it as much. But as I said, like I don't really mask, so I don't really think about it anyway when it comes to speaking to neurotypicals. So it's like some people just don't like me and sort of misinterpret the wrong things about what I communicate or how I act or what I look like when they're talking to me, and you know, some people don't. So it's really a mixed bag. And the people who do tend to be my people, you know. I love silence. My mother-in-law likes to fill silence with noise that's just annoying. Yeah, like a oh, we had a bit of a silence there. That was interesting. You know, just saying stuff like that. Oh my god. But the pattern recognition aspect, 100%. Also lateral thinking, I would highlight. Don't know if it's ADHD related. It might be ADHD related. It's definitely autism related. Basically tying two pieces of information from seemingly separate things together. It's actually a lot of the ways that I've been able to understand my autism and other people, you know. Brie last night, she was 1 subscriber away from 100. Oh, I'll have to follow you. Oh wait, who are you talking about? Oh, I thought Brie had a YouTube channel. Interesting. I'm still small. Why am I not enlarging myself?
Got to do with ADHD. Well, among the criteria for ADHD diagnosis is something like makes a lot of careless mistakes. That's a lot of the reasons that you know, people might be picked up on ADHD. And I won't say that that never happens to me, but I think that it's easier to spot mistakes when you have an aptitude for pattern recognition. And so my own experience is that I will review things, sometimes obsessively beforehand, because I will catch the mistakes and because the autistic side of me can't abide mistakes. And that's again, like, that's autism cleaning up ADHD's mess. But the thing is that they are both there, and the careless mistakes are being made, but they're also being caught and corrected. So it did occur to me while I was writing this.
I think when it came to my, like, the way that I used to conduct myself when it came to work was that, like, I was very much a perfectionist, and I have been 100%. And I think at one point I realized that, you know, sometimes being a perfectionist kind of gets in the way of getting stuff done. You know, it makes me very anxious to like try and make sure that everything is perfect. So if I've got in my head, I've got to make it perfect, I will stick on that thing until it is seamless. You know, I'll iron out all the little annoying little ridges in the cloth that I'm ironing. It's a very strange metaphor, you know? And it wasn't good. And I've actually sort of taught myself to be a little bit more, you know, this is okay. Like, you know, nobody's perfect. And I think if I can avoid getting myself in these loops of just constantly thinking about if I've done something perfectly, like, the better, you know? Do you know what I mean? I have that with creating video, almost done, but I can't post because I keep messing with them. Yeah. I mean, my documentary, I probably put in about 100 odd hours into editing that. Really did not need to spend that much time looking back on it. I mean, it was kind of an opportunity for me to learn editing skills, but you know. Did you say that you wanted to make a video on, what do you say you wanted to make a video? Body dysmorphic disorder? I would really like to see that video. If you do end up making that, I will definitely review it. Such a lateral thinker, didn't know the term until I heard it from you. It's so good. It's such a good thing. It's so good for innovation, like in any area of life, really. Like creating new things or new connections, just ties things together, just makes them a little bit more concrete and like interesting, you know. No, well, thank you very much, Paula. Much appreciated, my friends. Body dysmorphia is psychological. A lot of it's fueled by OCD. People with it find body parts, subparts, and hyperfixate on it. Yeah, I think there's been some links between autism and BDD for that, you know. Oh, you're banned. I don't think you'll be banned for like forever. I think probably puts you in like a 10-second timeout or something. Puts you on the naughty step, Marvin. Hello, Gareth. How you doing?
This actually, that I am not very kind to the ADHD side of myself, and I've always felt more shame for my ADHD traits than for my autistic traits, and probably that's, you know, how I grew up. But I think it's worth examining that in yourself, thinking about which one you let out to play and which one you keep tucked tight inside.
I think that there is, from what I've seen, that there does seem to be more people out there who take a very medical view on ADHD as opposed to autism. Just as what I've seen, you know, there's a lot of people that I've seen that kind of talk about it as being, you know, this is how I fix this aspect of my ADHD and stuff like that, using the sort of the phrases, the language around it. Could just be me, but it's something that I've seen.
Where does the shame lie, and which is the one that you're actually okay with? Maybe there's shame for both of them, but I've noticed that for me there was a big imbalance there, and I definitely felt more shame and hid my ADHD traits more. And since I've noticed that when I honor my ADHD needs, which include social needs, I just feel happier and more regulated. And it is a constant balancing act. You know, I can't pretend that it isn't exhausting and hard, but life is too short to kind of continue to be cruel to parts of yourself that you just don't really like very much. So I think it's important to kind of examine that, you know, if you do have both, or if you do eventually get diagnosed with both. So, a preference for rationalizing thoughts and emotions. You may think that this is a stretch. What has this got to do with it? But let me rationalize this to you.
No,
I've made some very big
agree.
and impulsive decisions in my life, which I did talk about in the previous video, but autism always comes along and rationalizes it. So, for example, I didn't move to the Netherlands because I was bored and wanted to change and made an impulsive decision. No, I have a long list of perfectly rational and reasonable reasons why I did that and why that was a good idea. And you can rationalize almost anything, even the bad decisions. So this isn't always a good thing, but it happens. But when these impulsive decisions come along, to other people, I can present a very reasonable case for why this is extremely well thought out, even if those justifications came to me after I'd already made that impulsive decision to just go for it. You know, then autism comes around and is like, actually, you know, there are some reasons why this is good, so let me tell you. So what this results...
Well, I think as well, it's pretty hard to, like, I think they did some psychological tests on, I think it was some big study which actually touched on the aspects of like free will, you know, being that sort of people made their decision to pick between two objects before they consciously were aware that they made the decision to pick between two objects. So maybe there is there has been rationalization in your unconscious to a certain degree. Maybe it's hard to tell though, isn't it? Because man, like the brain is complex, like even to ourselves. That's my confusion. Am I ADHD or just a rather extroverted autistic? Well, I'm the same, Moonlight. Like I definitely do have social needs. I don't think that's necessarily just an ADHD thing. Yeah, those studies are creepy. I love them. They're great. Let's not get into a talk about free will. We've talked about that before. There's a long rant about me talking about my beliefs on free will. How do you feel about the Love on the Spectrum show? I actually have a video on that. If you want to go check it out. Ketsia. We're reacting to Meg's I'm Autistic Now What's video on it. Sort of gave my thoughts. Yeah. Wait, what was I going to say? It'll come to me. Rationalization. Yeah, it's hard to tell sometimes. And I think whenever it comes to things like lived experience, there is always going to be some degree of grayness and subjectivity to it, you know. Although it can sometimes be, you know, as with things which are sort of inherently more creative, they sort of inherently become more grey and sort of hard to define and subjective. And a lot of people have their own particular narratives or characterizations of like how they view their autism, how they view their ADHD. Like everyone has their own sort of way of explaining that. There are some things that other people do actually agree on quite a bit, you know, when we're speaking in the context of ADHD. But yeah, it can vary a lot from person to person. It's interesting, like listening to people talk about their experiences and how they've sort of figured out their brain and how they characterize different things. And do you know what I mean? Because I could, with a lot of these things, I could very much say to the same degree that, you know, autism hides depression, or like depression hide, like the mental health aspects of my life is pretty significant. And so there's always this kind of battling sort of angel, maybe not angel versus devil, that's a bit intense, sort of battle in my brain between these two things trying to pull me in different ways, you know. It's just about like how I characterize it, maybe, because maybe if I didn't know that if I wasn't depressed and wasn't anxious, like maybe I would have characterized my autistic experience as being quite different. We need Thomas to do a good ADHD quiz. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like socializing. I don't like maintaining things. I don't like texting. I'm not very good at texting. I'm terrible at it with pretty much everybody. And for me, a good in-person socialize over good dose of in-person socialization every week, every couple of weeks does me good. During the week, maybe 1 or 2 calls with like a friend or conversations with my family or something usually does me. And then sort of being around people in the gym, not even just talking to people, just kind of being in people's presences, that can sometimes be sort of fulfill some sense of a social need to a certain degree, sense of community maybe. While missing autism completely, psychiatrist once suggested that OCD can occur to disguise ADHD. Has anyone heard anything like this before? Interesting. It's definitely harder as a woman to get help. I got lucky with my doctor. My mom is a nurse, and even though I have a diagnosis, she's still in denial that I have ADHD. Oh, God. That's not good. I'm glad that you've got a good doctor, though. That's very important. One of the questions on the quiz is, does this shiny spoon distract you? Focuses on shiny thing, forgets the quiz. Just doesn't complete it. Do you get a perfect ADHD score if you, like, don't complete it the entire way through? I'm just joking, by the way. You know? I think human experience can be so verified. You mean verified? So I haven't heard of that term before.
This results in is not looking impulsive from the outside. And this also works with emotions too. As an ADHD, you have a more volatile emotional landscape. That's a very nice way of putting it, I think. But I find you can really impress therapists by being so rational about it all.
Yes.
It was a joke. The therapists are not impressed by that. Yeah, that is something I tend to do, is rationalize emotions. And when you rationalize emotions, you think your way out of it. That's not necessarily healthy, but I think it can hide a little bit of ADHD. So up next is the ability to absorb and make sense of a lot of information. As I mentioned, this is also a trait of giftedness. The trifecta of autism, ADHD, and giftedness is a very interesting thing. But regardless of what part of me that trait comes from, this ability, having this ability, is why I made it through school and through university and through a master's degree, despite generally starting all my projects at the last minute. Eventually I did.
It's a difficult one, that, because I'm pretty sure that I do have very good recall of acts, like, or else I wouldn't be able to do streams of this nature. But I think I talked about it before, didn't I? Just because I can't produce it out of my brain. I can't just say, like, you know, say, okay, I'm going to in my brain display all of the facts that I know about autism and sort of being able to sort of pick them up. And it's very dependent on like sort of like things remind me of things. I think that's probably why I like doing these streams so much, because when people speak about different concepts, I'm like, oh, I remember a whole host of different things related to this, and it's like, you know, it kind of works for me. But I don't know. I mean, my memory's not anything to scoff at. I mean, like, it's not anything special. My logical solving ability is perhaps though. I pretty much ate. I think I did like an IQ test at some point, and the logical section was just like way up higher than any other aspects. The mathematics was awful too. It was like that for me. School was hell, but so easy. It never really showed in my grades. Yeah, I mean that's the issue, isn't it? With being a gifted or functional, semi-functional, semi-successful student. They don't really pay much attention to your social emotional needs when you are fulfilling what they want of you. You know, it's a very cynical way of looking at it, but it's true. You know, yeah.
I did learn that this was very stressful for me. I think it was my master's degree where I really tried to be better at planning, but even then I did make a plan and I mostly stuck to it, but I didn't plan well enough. And I was still finishing off my master's dissertation the day that it was due. When you can do this, when you can understand information and very quickly put it all together and make sense of it, you may miss a few deadlines here and there, but the quality of your work is usually pretty good, sometimes exceptional. You know, I think I ended up getting a distinction on that dissertation that I felt like I was still just doing it all last minute. This is why teachers very often miss this, because if you're producing work of a high quality, you may seem a little disorganized, but overall your grades are good, so they don't care. And they often miss the fact that you're actually just motivating yourself with fear and urgency.
Oh, that's so relatable. Just motivating yourself with fear and urgency. The time's clicking down. You gotta get... the deadline is approaching. It's time. You gotta get out of your procrastination hole. Oh my god. I'm not. I don't think I'm like that. I prepared quite a bit, but when it came to exams, not too good at exams. When professors were sticklers for like how well you put information together, because I could just speak forever around a specific word. Like an exam paper will say basically a very short sentence on what they want you to do. And when it comes to biomedical sciences, my god, the amount of things that any of these sentences could mean was just manifold. So I basically, for a lot of my exams, I just defaulted to splurging out as much information as I could around what I thought they might want to hear from me. It was not a very good way of testing my sort of knowledge about certain areas. That's one of the reasons I don't think I have ADHD. Deadlines mostly irritate me and often have no influence on my behaviors at all. Interesting. Yeah, I think it's usually I'm quite good at planning and I can do stuff. It's like I've got a presentation that I've got to do for the Autism show, which I am going to if you want to come see it in Manchester. I'm speaking on one of the days. You want to come say hi? Give a little autistic nod of understanding. Yeah. So I've already done the presentation for that, the slides for that. I just had the motivation out of nowhere, but I think it's mostly my issues when it comes to deadlines and things of that nature is just mental health. It's like it can be overwhelming sometimes. If I'm in a good place, it's all good. What are you doing, Layla? Are you giving me a test? Oh no, I'm gonna have to take this, aren't I? I mean, there is a possibility that I could have. I don't think I'm ADHD because I might be. I mean, it's really hard to know because I've been on sedative meds for so long. Maybe that's like hiding the ADHD part of me, possibly. But I don't think so. A lot of things that ADHDers talk about, and the things that I've seen them display, and the things that they've talked about when they're just ADHD, I just don't relate to a lot of it. You know, I don't know. It's hard because that crossover with executive function, I mean, it's pretty clear, isn't it? It's pretty like solid. Then I will do hyperactivity. Do you want me to continue? let's do it in a bit. Okay, I'll take the ADHD test.
And there's lots of people, even psychologists, diagnosticians, they still believe that you can't have ADHD because you did too well in school. And it's like, yeah, but the struggle was not an intellectual one. The struggle was an executive functioning one. It's quite a lonely place to be, realizing that you can know and understand a lot. You can know so much and you can really understand it and you really have a great grasp of it, but you still can't conform to the expectations of school and academia and society at large. Now, of course, I want to mention I wasn't on ADHD
exam questions
back then, and I
to
do
be.
believe that they would have really helped me a lot, to be honest, with this particular issue. I think mainly my problem was starting projects and obviously having that momentum. And that was a very big problem for me throughout my life and is very much not a problem now.
I never really had an issue with starting projects. Ah, thank you very much. An unprompted compliment on my haircut. Thank you. What was I going to say? You distracted me. You're appeasing my vanity. What was I going to say? Can't believe you ever took a decent ADHD screen. I mean, I think I have done, but I think it's my brain. I don't know. I don't feel like it's me, It might be, possibly. I can't remember what I was going to say. Oh yeah, I have problems with finishing projects. Thank you very much, Esper, for... Yeah, it's the starting that's fine for me. I'm good with that. I like starting projects, and I do them, but then I also degrade my mental state to a point where I burn out if I take on too many things, So that's the issue that I have when it comes to projects, but it's never really about... If I'm motivated and if I want to do a project, I will do it, And I'll start now. And then I'll continue it. I think I'm fairly conscientious in that sense. You're so cute, lol. God. Gosh. Wait, do I have a button for that? I don't think so. Oh, I have this one. Wow! That was intensely loud. I'm so sorry about that. That's very relatable. Good.
I just want to mention quickly that for those of you who are in the early stages of your autism discovery, whether that's pre-diagnosis, post-diagnosis, as well as for those whom diagnosis is not available or accessible, I have developed a workbook to deepen your understanding of your autistic traits and try to make sense of all these thoughts and memories that come to you during this time. As well as breaking down the diagnostic criteria in a more relatable way, there are sections on masking and talking to
I'm going to do
about
something
autism.
like this.
So check it out if that sounds like it might be useful to you, or maybe someone...
definitely go check this out because, you Sam put together this video. You gotta support the creators who are basically like trying to fill in the gaps of what the medical system just haven't been able to do. But I'm going to be developing a social emotional development course. I'm in the works. I started it. This is a project that I haven't continued because I've been doing too many things and I had to cut some things. But I will be working on it after I finish my book, I think. And basically it's not a guide to masking. It's, I sort of separate out the ideas of socializing and masking to quite a heavy degree, but I've been on a lot of emotional social journeys in my life and I've learned a lot. I learned a lot from the science of it all and sort of tied it into my own experience. So I'm hoping it will be a benefit to some people out there. You can't purchase it. It's not out yet.
Maybe someone you know. Now back to the video.
So the last thing I want to talk about is what hid my hyperactivity. So I don't have an official ADHD diagnosis with a subtype. Firstly, I don't need one in this country to access ADHD meds because I have the autism diagnosis. And I've also had 2 psychologists basically validate my ADHD, so I didn't really feel the need to get a diagnosis on top of that. And while people tend to say that girls tend to be more of an inattentive type than a hyperactive type, I don't think that is the case with me. I don't relate to this feeling of being dreamy in a way with the fairies as much as just being very mentally hyperactive. But there is a relation to physical hyperactivity that I want.
I don't feel either of those. I don't feel hyperactive. I'm not hyperactive. I'm also not I think the only reason why I might be a bit more dreamy is because of my medication, but it really does. I think it really does have an impact on like the potential of that. Like I don't think I'd be able to know unless I came off my sedative medication, and just, or even antidepressants to a certain degree, because they definitely have some side effects that I will be going into in a later video. Stuff around alexithymia and all that. Stella says I'm dreamy and away with the fairies. Lol, my mind never shuts off. Miss Pat Driver Van Lay said the Weibo would have been very helpful. I ended up going through a grinder. I hope you don't mean the app. Trying to figure out what autism actually is and how autistic I need to be autistic. Yeah, that's a hard one, isn't it? I mean, if it makes you feel better about that part, like I went through that many times in my life, and I was diagnosed relatively quite young, so it's I think it's quite a common experience. But again, like I don't have experience being late diagnosed, but I've talked to some people who are, so maybe it is a relatable thing. Don't traumatize these poor souls with grinder. Sorry, Fendi. I mainly it's an app for selling meat grinders. That's what I'm talking about. Figgy says that grinder app not with. Yeah. I think the inclusion. Alright, I'm just gonna stop. Let's continue the video, it's derailing.
That I wanted to talk about, and how physical hyperactivity ends up managing or hiding a lot of your ADHD traits. So when I think about my childhood, I was a gymnast, and it was not just because, I like gymnastics, so I'm going to take some classes. It was because I was just naturally, tumbling around most of the time. And there was a short period in my life where I was competing at a county level, as well as doing school gymnastics, as well as doing ballet, and we did sport every day at our school, which means that, I was training gymnastics 7 times a week on top of all the other stuff that I was doing.
And we need to talk again. I need to talk to Sam again. We did a podcast together, but it's been a while. We have a lot in common, I think. Like our experiences sort of earlier in life. Very good save, Tom. Thomas, page in Discord if you want to assess yourself. Oh, okay, I will do after this. The train of thought has dreamt the tracks. No, it's the train of thought was still going down. I've just halted it. I am being the fat conductor to my Thomas the Tank Engine brain. One of my... Okay, one last thing, and we'll finish up the video. One of my nicknames as a fighter, when I used to fight, was Thomas the Tank. Like, because of Thomas the Tank Engine. I kind of like it, I think some people said it to, like, get under my skin, but I actually think it's pretty cool. Choo choo.
And that was really, I think, very helpful to manage my hyperactivity. That was really a lot of sport looking back on it. Honestly, I swear, if we can harness the energy of ADHD kids, we can collectively reduce our dependence on fossil fuels overnight. We just need to hook them up to some generators. There's like a perpetual motion machine.
Yeah, perpetual motion machine. Yeah, I was just gonna say.
I'm sure of it. This level of physical activity was probably quite unsustainable and did not last into my teens. So this was a combination of several factors. Probably also the increased demands on my autism, but also undiagnosed celiac disease, PCOS, and PMDD, which all contributed to having extremely low energy levels at times. I wasn't able to do that level.
Yeah, that's another thing. I was talking about sort of the... It's difficult to isolate parts of you as being these are the autistic bit, and everybody has their own characterization of which parts of them are the autistic parts. I think it's the same, and it becomes very muddy when there's so many other factors going on. Human beings are very complex. Okay, I'm going to stop calling myself alphabet. Why? Meanwhile, I had to develop a need for movement. Yeah, I see that. I mean, I am like that on my meds. When I'm not on my meds, I'm I think I've got a fair bit of energy, but it's never hyperactivity, I would say. It's just, I was going to say something cringe. I'm a very driven person. The neurotransmitter that is associated with being driven, I think I have a lot of that.
level of physical activity. And I think what happened was, as my physical energy dropped for all of these reasons, I wasn't able to channel my ADHD in a physical way. And so it became more of a mental hyperactivity. And right now, I'm exhausted from living. As you can probably hear, I'm recovering from a cold. I'm exhausted from raising kids too. And I don't have it in me to do the amount of physical activity that would probably help with my ADHD. I exercise 3 times a week and I can pretty much stick to that. But to be honest, that isn't enough for my brain. Ideally, probably my brain would probably want me to exercise every day. There's no way that I can keep up to that though. But this is why I think that ADHD is, exercise is very, very good for ADHD brains, because it stops the hyperactivity from going up to your head. So that's it for today. Let me know.
Amazing video. Thank you very much to, that's not the right screen. Thank you very much to Yosemite-san for an awesome video. Please make sure to go and like their videos, subscribe to them, drop them a comment, help boost their video in the algorithm, because I am just a humbled autistic streamer.